Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 7 tight end start or sit decisions for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to be going in depth into every single matchup from Thursday Night Football all the way until Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I believe you should start or sit the notable tight ends in every single matchup. But before we can get on into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to leave a like on today's video to help boost the video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I would also like to ask, if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there, to please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. The link to my Twitter is also down below in the video description. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 7 tight end start or sit decisions, beginning with tonight, Thursday Night Football. The Denver Broncos going up against the Cleveland Browns in Cleveland, with all of the injuries to basically every single key player on the Cleveland Browns, with it seeming like Odell Beckham Jr. is not going to end up playing, with Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt definitely out in this game, with Baker Mayfield not playing in this game. You would think that, hey, maybe the tight ends in this scenario are going to want to wake up in this scenario, because there are no real other options to be throwing the football to. All of the main ancillary pieces to the Cleveland Browns offense are fucking hurt. But at the end of the day, week in and week out, you just have no idea which tight end to end up starting for the Cleveland Browns, and it is pretty likely that with this game being projected to be low scoring, and I assume it's going to be a very low scoring game, that neither tight end, Austin Hooper or David Njoku, end up having any fantasy value at all. A lot of teams, they run that running back by committee, where they use a backfield of multiple running backs to try to get it done so they don't have to utilize a workhorse running back, because they don't have one. The Cleveland Browns, they utilize the tight end by committee, which completely screws you over week in and week out, because you have no fucking idea which tight end to end up starting. This week, it is still just as confusing, even without Odell playing in this game, even without Nick Chubb, even without Kareem Hunt. I just have zero confidence in either of these guys, Austin Hooper or David Njoku. I wouldn't be surprised at all if either of them ended up scoring a touchdown, but which one will it be? Genuinely, I have no idea, and I honestly don't think that anyone has any idea which tight end will end up finding his way into the end zone tonight, if any of them end up scoring, because again, this is projected to be a very low-scoring game. In this game, though, I do expect the Denver Broncos to heavily utilize Noah Fant in this matchup. My assumption right now is that Teddy Bridgewater ends up playing and is the starting quarterback of the Denver Broncos, because we're getting closer and closer to game time, and nothing has came out yet that he is going to be sitting, even if his availability has been up in the air for the last week. But at the end of the day, I think Teddy Bridgewater ends up playing. I think that is much better for Noah Fant to potentially have a big spot this week up against the Cleveland Browns defense. Next up, we move to the Sunday slate of games with the Carolina Panthers at the New York Football Giants. And Evan Ingram's availability is also completely up in the air. It seems as though he's trending closer towards not playing, but to me, with all the injuries to the Giants wide receivers, there is a pretty good shot that even if Evan Ingram isn't 100% healthy, that they end up rolling him out on Sunday. If he does not end up playing, then if you are in a deeper league, I would definitely consider playing Kyle Rudolph with all of the injuries to all of the key players in the Giants offense. Evan Ingram has been far from amazing thus far this season, but he is targeted heavily by Daniel Jones, which does inherently give him fantasy football value. For the Panthers, they got Ian Thomas, they got Tommy, make that ass tremble, but at the end of the day, neither of those guys are very fantasy relevant unless Mono Man Sam throws them a touchdown, which is possible up against the Giants, but I would certainly not bet on it. So my best bet is to sit down Ian Thomas and Tommy Tremble. And again, if Evan Ingram ends up suiting up, he has to be a start in this game just because of the other options on the team being hurt. Next up, we move to the New York Jets at the New England Patriots. I know a lot of people try to kind of talk up Jonnu Smith this week because, hey, they're going up against the jumbo Jets. The Patriots should be able to plow out that Jets defense, and I agree. Realistically, this game should be a blowout by 7,000 points by the Patriots. They should let Mac Jones cook up a fucking 5-star meal behind the offensive line, and he should put up a humongous spot, the biggest game yet of his career up against the Jets. Why would I think that? Because the Jets defense isn't very good. Jets offense hasn't been great, and this is easily a game where Bill Belichick could devise a game plan to smack down the Jets, but that's not what's going to happen. What is going to happen is that Mac Jones will play well in the game. He plays well in basically every single game, but they never let the man step fully on the gas, step fully on the throat of the opponents, and what is going to happen in that case is that the New York Football Jets are not going to be in this game, but Mac Jones isn't going to stomp all over them. He's not going to throw 4 or 5 touchdowns in this game like some other quarterbacks could up against the Jets because kind of Bill Belichick handicaps him in a way and doesn't let him do that, doesn't let him cook up that amazing game. So Hunter Henry, he is a start because it seems like every single week, the only player that is scoring receiving touchdowns on the Patriots is the tight ends, and Hunter Henry appears to be the main tight end in this system. Ryan Griffin, as well as the other tight ends for the Jets, are going to be sits. And Jonnu Smith, I understand some people talk themselves into him, but I really do believe the best bet is that Hunter Henry ends up scoring, and that will likely make Jonnu Smith irrelevant. Next up, we move to the Kansas City Chiefs at the Tennessee Titans. Last week, I tried to talk myself a little bit into Ferkser for DFS in that matchup up against the Buffalo Bills, but it turns out that Jeff Swaim is going to be just as involved as Ferkser, and you're basically praying to the fantasy football lords that the tight end that you end up starting here, if it's Ferkser or Jeff Swaim, ends up finding their way into the end zone, with this likely being a very heavy rushing attack by the Tennessee Titans to try to plow out that Chiefs defense by using Derrick Henry. I don't really expect too much out of Ferkser or Jeff Swaim. For the Chiefs, obviously, you start Travis Kelce every single week. There is no doubt in my mind that I want to start him regardless on how good the defense is. The Titans defense against the pass isn't all that great. If they were playing up against the fucking 85 Bears, the best defense to ever walk on the earth, I'm still playing Travis Kelce. You want to know why? Because Travis Kelce is just that good. Next up, we got the Washington Football Team at the Green Bay Packers. I'm playing my boy, Mr. R.R. Is that a noise that the Seals make? The Seals, do they make that noise? Ricky R.R. Seals Jones, tight end of the Washington Football Team. Without Logan Thomas, it appears to be Big Dick Ricky Seals Jones season up against the Green Bay Packers. Now, the Packers defense is much better than the Kansas City Chiefs defense, and the Kansas City Chiefs locked up the Washington Football Team offense. But at the end of the day, Ricky Seals Jones still had a good game, and I think he could see similar success this week up against the Green Bay Packers. And Robert Tonyan is going to be a sit. He's been relegated to the fact where he's basically just fucking exiled off of the island. Robert Tonyan is a touchdown-dependent tight end that does not score touchdowns. Last year, it was all fine and dandy because the Green Bay Packers were pounding these defenses, and the ball was always going to Robert Tonyan. But this year, Robert Tonyan has been sleeping in the end zone, taking a fucking nap. They're not throwing him the ball. With that said, you can't start him anymore. He's a guy that I probably would cut on my team if I had him up to this point. Next up, we got the Atlanta Falcons at my Miami Dolphins, and I like both tight ends in this game. Kyle Pitts had that breakout game 2 weeks ago up against the Jumbo Jets in London, baby, and then they went on bye, and then this week will be the first game since then, and I believe Kyle Pitts could be in for a humongous matchup. The Dolphins defense sucks complete and utter donkey cock at this point in the season. The Dolphins defense couldn't stop calm and cold, so I expect Kyle Pitts to look very nice, as Borat would say, in this matchup. For Mike Gesicki, Devontae Parker may end up playing in this game. It is what it is, right? Who really cares, in my opinion, with Devontae Parker in the game? I still think Mike Gesicki will be seeing a healthy dosage of targets up against the Atlanta Falcons. I believe Tua Tagovailoa to be throwing rockets in this game. I hope that the Dolphins offensive coordinators take their heads directly out of their ass and understand, hey, if we throw the ball with Tua, things were going pretty well last week. Maybe we should do that. Maybe we shouldn't run the ball with fucking Salvin Ahmed, you fucking buffoons. So at the end of the day, Mike Gesicki is going to be a start for me, and I expect him to potentially have a very big spot up against the Falcons defense. Next up, we move to the Cincinnati Bengals at the Baltimore Ravens, and this is kind of the point in the video where we realize that, hey, there's fucking 6 teams on bye. We got the Buffalo Bills on bye, the Dallas Cowboys, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the LA Chargers, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So some of these guys that I normally don't bang the drum aggressively for, like CJ Uzomah, kind of pivot their way into being starts because there's 6 teams that aren't playing this week. So some guys are going to have to move up. Now with CJ Uzomah, you are praying to the fantasy lords above that CJ Uzomah has that touchdown, because if he doesn't waddle his way on into the end zone, then you're going to be quite disappointed, because he's not a guy that's going to see 8, 9, 10 targets every single game. Maybe it's possible up against the Ravens, but highly unlikely. So Uzomah is a start, but he's kind of one of those bottom of the barrel starts where you're really looking for a shot in the dark there for CJ Uzomah. For the Ravens, I'm firing up Marky Mark Andrews. Mr. Marky Mark Andrews has been on a tear lately this season. I believe he is in for a potential huge spot up against the Cincinnati Bengals. But Nick, the Ravens offense, the passing offense was so bad last week up against the LA Chargers. Lamar Jackson disappointed me. Hollywood Brown disappointed me. Mark Andrews didn't play all that well. Nick, is that going to change? Yeah, it's going to change, I think, if the Baltimore Ravens don't just put the pedal to the metal like they did up against the Chargers, where the Chargers they were doing nothing in that game. They were fucking flopping around like a dead fucking fish, or I guess a dead fish wouldn't flop, but you get what I'm saying, a fish out of water. They were just flopping around. The Chargers offense couldn't do anything, so the Ravens just committed to run the ball gently down the stream. And what that's going to lead to is, you know, not a lot of receptions for the receivers because they're just running the ball. Will that be the case up against the Bengals? I bet not. So I think Mark Andrews could be in for a solid game. The other tight end that is of note in this game is Drew Sample, which is definitely a fake name for the Cincinnati Bengals. You ain't starting him at all. Next up, we got the Detroit Lions at the LA Rams for a double revenge game from Jared Goff as well as Matthew Stafford. But before we hear about this double revenge game narrative, I would like to ask if you have ended up enjoying thus far to make sure to hit that subscribe button down below as well as hitting that like button. I would appreciate it a ton. So TJ Hawkinson finally comes back and has a great game. Hallelujah. We've been waiting weeks for TJ Hawkinson to have that game that he had earlier on in the season. He was looking very, very nice, but as of recently, he's been looking very, very bad. But last week, he played pretty well. I expect him to continue on this train of being the #1 receiving option on the Detroit Lions. This game may get ugly up against the Rams, but that's going to mean they're going to be throwing the ball a lot deep in the game with Mr. Jared Goff, and that could lead to more receptions, more targets coming the way of Mr. TJ Hawkinson. For the Rams, going up against the Lions, I expect Matthew Stafford to absolutely murder O.J. Simpson style this Lions defense. No mercy at all for the Lions defense. I think Tyler Higbee could be in for a huge spot here, as they're probably going to throw maybe 5 touchdowns in this game, right? Now, again, it is a revenge game narrative. They might not throw 5 touchdowns, right? That's on the high note. But what I'm saying is I believe that Matthew Stafford's going to throw a bunch of touchdowns, so there's a pretty good chance that if it's in the red zone, that it ends up going the way of Mr. Tyler Higbee. Next up, we got the Philadelphia Eagles at the Las Vegas, turn your volume down, the Las Vegas Raiders up against the Philadelphia Eagles in Viva Las Vegas. And Dallas Goedert is now without Mr. Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz walked out of town. He is now in Arizona, and now the door is wide open for Dallas Goedert to have a humongous spot without Zach Ertz. The Eagles and Jalen Hurts love to pepper the tight end aggressively with targets, and I believe Dallas Goedert could be in for a huge spot up against the Raiders. Darren Waller, he's kind of in the same narrative as a guy like Travis Kelce. Doesn't matter the defense, doesn't matter who they're playing. I could give less of a fuck. You play Darren Waller. Because he's so good, he's so involved in the offense, you play him every single week. Darren Waller, tight end of the Las Vegas Raiders. Next up, we got the Houston Texans at the Arizona Cardinals, the J.J. Watt and DeAndre Hopkins revenge game. Zach Ertz will be a start in this one, but he is one of those guys that to me is a very risky start because it is his first game there in Arizona, so it wouldn't surprise me if maybe he is heavily underutilized in this game, maybe doesn't get as many snaps this week as he will for the future, right? Because it's his first game there. But at the end of the day, how complicated could it be for a veteran like Zach Ertz to get shipped? He got shipped, what, last week on Friday? To the team, so he's had some time to learn the playbook. I still expect him to have some solid usage in this game, but I do understand why some people may be a little bit worried, a little bit frightened by starting Zach Ertz this week. But at the end of the day, I'm still firing him up. Jordan Akins for the Houston Texans will be a sit for me because I don't expect Davis Mills and friends to be scoring too many points in this matchup. Next up, we got a game between the Bears and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a revenge game for Mr. Tampa Bay Tom because Tom forgot what down it was last year. Tampa Bay Tom was a bit of a silly goose last time these two teams played, but I expect him to play good, but Gronk's not playing. O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, gun to the head, you got to pick one. Pick O.J. Howard, but Otherwise, you're really hoping for the touchdown, and I think that this might just be an Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, as well as Chris Godwin railing of the Bears defense, so I don't really want anything to do with the tight ends. Cole Kmet just is not involved at all with Justin Fields under center, so he's a guy that is a huge swing and a miss in fantasy drafts. You probably cut him up to this point in the season. He's pretty irrelevant as of right now. Next game, we got the Indianapolis Colts at the San Francisco 49ers for Sunday Night Football. For my start, I'm going with my boy Mo Cox, tight end of the Indianapolis Colts. Mo Alley Cox has just been on a tear, scoring touchdowns as of recently, so I expect him to play pretty solid up against the Niners. And again, he's kind of one of those guys that gets elevated, pushed up the rankings, up the start-sit decisions because of all the teams on bye. The other tight end for the Indianapolis Colts, Jack Doyle, seems to have lost his spot to Cox. And then the 49ers without George Kittle, Ross Dwelley with Jimmy Garoppolo. That's a big no for Mr. Ross Dwelley. Final game here, Monday Night Football between famous Eat a W Winston, famous Jameis Winston, steal a crab Jameis Winston, up against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. The 12th man doesn't matter. Doesn't matter that the 12th man is there. I think the Saints roll him. I have no idea why you would want to start any of the tight ends in this game, though. Will Dissly, for some reason, getting a decent amount of usage. Gerald Everett is still the main guy there, but Dissly sees a decent amount of usage to where I kind of just want to stay away, especially with Geno Smith under center. Like, why do you want anything to do with a majority of these Seattle Seahawks players, especially the ancillary players who you need that fucking touchdown for? You need the touchdown for a guy like Everett, like Dissly, and there's not going to be very many touchdowns coming out of Mr. Geno Smith. Adam Troutman, Jawan Johnson, they're sits for the Saints. Just don't really believe in them. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. I would appreciate it a ton. I love each and every single one of you guys, and I hope to see you guys later in the live stream. As always, guys, good boy.